It was December 23rd, 1974, 2 days before Christmas. Fort Worth, Texas was packed. Stores, parking lots, families everywhere. 3 girls decided to spend the morning at the mall. They never came home. Their car was found in the Sears upper parking lot, still there, locked. The Christmas gifts they had bought that day were still inside. They made it back to the car. Something happened right there in that lot. It has been over 50 years, no arrests, no bodies, no answers. This is the story of the Fort Worth missing trio, and a cold case that refuses to close. Rachel Trlica was 17, already married, already a stepmother, mature beyond her years. She had no reason to disappear. Renee Wilson was 14. That very morning, her boyfriend had slipped a promise ring onto her finger. She wanted to be home by 4 p.m. She had a Christmas party to get ready for. Julie Moseley was 9 years old. She wasn't supposed to go. She begged her mother at the last minute. She just didn't want to spend the day alone. "Be home by 6, her mother said. She said yes. That single word would haunt her for the rest of her life. December 23rd, the last known hours. Shortly before noon, the girls left for Seminary South Shopping Center. They stopped first at a surplus store. Renee had layaway items waiting. Then they headed to the mall. The mall was packed. Christmas Eve was the next day. Witnesses later confirmed seeing the girls inside, shopping, completely normal. At some point that afternoon, they returned to Rachel's car. We know this because the gifts they bought were found inside it. They made it back. And then something happened. When 4 p.m. came and went, Renee didn't come home. No call. When 6 p.m. passed, Julie hadn't returned either. The families drove to Seminary South. They found Rachel's 1972 Oldsmobile in the Sears upper lot, locked, the presents inside, no girls. They stayed at the mall all night waiting. Nobody came back. The letter. The next morning, Christmas Eve, a letter arrived at the home Rachel shared with her husband, Tommy. It was signed Rachel. It read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears upper lot. Love, Rachel." The families read it and immediately knew something was wrong. The envelope was addressed to Thomas A. Trlica. Rachel never called her husband Thomas. She always called him Tommy. The envelope was written in pencil. The letter inside was in ink on paper wider than the envelope itself. The name Rachel in the upper left corner appeared to be initially misspelled, the L written as an E, then corrected. The postmark had no city, just a blurred zip code that could have been Weatherford or Eliasville, Texas. The FBI analyzed the letter. Handwriting experts across the country studied it, multiple times. Every single analysis came back inconclusive. "No 9-year-old is going to run off 2 days before Christmas. Everybody knows that," said Renee's mother, Judy. Investigators later retrieved DNA from the letter. No match has ever been found. Most people who have studied this case believe the letter was not written by Rachel. It was written by whoever took them, to buy time and throw off the investigation. If that is true, it worked, because police initially presumed the girls were runaways, and critical time was lost. The search. When the families realized police weren't moving fast enough, they took matters into their own hands. They distributed flyers across Texas, contacted newspapers nationwide, and hired a private detective named John Swaim. In August 1975, Swaim uncovered a 28-year-old man, someone who had worked at a store where Rachel applied for a job, making obscene calls to young women using their job applications to get their information. 6 women received calls. He had once lived in Rachel's parents' neighborhood. Nothing came of it. In April 1975, Swaim led 100 volunteers to Port Lavaca, Texas, to search under bridges after a tip. Nothing was found. A year later, 3 skeletons turned up in Brazoria County. Dental records confirmed they did not belong to the girls. In 1979, John Swaim died of a drug overdose, ruled a suicide. Before he died, he ordered all his case files destroyed. Everything he had gathered, gone. In 2001, the case was officially reopened and assigned to homicide detective Tom Bocher. His conclusion: we can say that they were at one point seen with one individual, but we believe there was more than one involved. In 2018, 2 cars were raised from Benbrook Lake. They yielded nothing. Thousands of leads, hundreds of searches, countless interviews. Nothing.
That was the whole goal. We just had to know. All these people, they want to know. They want to know the truth. You know, all these years we've been waiting. And we came across these cars, and it was really suspicious. It was right by everything that happened that day. My mind right now is...
What people saw. Multiple witnesses came forward over the years. None of their accounts could ever be fully confirmed, but none of them could be dismissed either. Around the time of the disappearance, a store clerk reported that a woman had told her she saw the 3 girls being forced into a yellow pickup truck near the Buddy's grocery store inside the mall. The truck had lights mounted on top, the kind you see on work vehicles or ranching trucks. That woman was never located. The account was never verified. It simply disappeared into the file. In 1981, 7 years after the girls vanished, a man came forward and said he had been in the Seminary South parking lot that day. He saw a man forcing a girl into a van. He approached. The man told him it was a family dispute and to stay out of it. He believed him. He walked away. He didn't report it until 1981. By then, whatever trail existed had been cold for years. In April 2001, Bill Hutchins, a former Fort Worth police officer who had been working as a security guard at the Sears store in the mall on December 23, 1974, came forward and stated he had seen all 3 girls with another security guard that evening. That account was taken seriously enough to note. It was never fully investigated. Think about what that means. A former law enforcement officer, working security at the exact store where the girl's car was found, says he saw them that night, with someone who was supposed to keep them all safe, and that lead went nowhere. 3 witnesses, 3 different accounts, a truck, a van, a security guard. The only thing they agree on is that something happened in or near that parking lot, and the only thing investigators agree on is that the girls did not leave on their own. The suspects. No one has ever been officially named as a suspect. No one has ever been charged. But certain names have been part of this case for decades, and some of them are hard to ignore. Thomas Trlica, Rachel's husband, 26 years old at the time, 9 years older than his 17-year-old wife. When police informed him that Rachel was missing, he was at a bowling alley. He said, "Okay, I'll come." And supposedly he finished bowling, said Julie's brother Terry. He was the one who received the letter the next morning. The letter addressed formally to Thomas A. Trlica, not Tommy, the name his wife always used. Investigators examined him. He was never officially named a suspect. He has never been charged. But Terry Moseley has never hidden what he thinks. "I think Thomas had something to do with it," he said. "That's always been my feeling." The obscene caller. In August 1975, Private Detective John Swaim identified a 28-year-old man who had worked at a store where Rachel had applied for a job shortly before her disappearance. He was using job applications to collect the personal information of young women, then calling them with obscene and threatening messages. 6 women received calls. He had previously lived in the neighborhood of Rachel's parents. He was investigated. Nothing was ever proven. His name was never made public. Rachel's sister, Deborah. Her name entered the conversation over the years, mostly through the work of Rachel's brother Rusty, who became increasingly convinced as the decades passed that someone close to the family knew more than they were saying. Rusty and Deborah eventually had a falling out over this. Nothing was ever proven against her. But the fracture in that family, caused by 50 years of unanswered questions, never healed. An unknown person, or persons, at the mall. This is what homicide detective Tom Butcher concluded when he reopened the case in 2001. The girls left with someone they knew, or someone who appeared trustworthy. There was more than one person involved, because in a crowded Christmas mall in broad daylight, 3 girls don't just vanish, not without at least appearing to go willingly. The place was packed with people, Terry said. It's not like now where people pull out their phones and video you being kidnapped. But the people that were around at that time would have done something. There would have been action taken.
There was no internet, there was no Facebook, there was nothing, there was no cameras. Like security, there was none. This is 1974. People are like, well, we'll solve it someday. I'm like, it's 50 years. I don't even think that way anymore. Long ago, I said, no, it's only if the person that did it said, I did it, and they can prove they did it. That's the only way it'll ever be solved.
Which means whoever did this either had a reason the girls trusted, or a way of making them comply quietly, quickly, in a way that looked ordinary to everyone around them. That takes planning. That takes knowledge. That is not random. 50 years, still no answers. More than 50 years have passed since December 23, 1974. Rachel's brother, Rusty Arnold, was 11 years old when his sister left the house that morning and never came back. He has spent the rest of his life looking for her. He has searched lakes, fields, back roads, and properties across Texas. He has hired investigators, chased leads, and dug holes in ground that turned out to hold nothing. I've been looking for these girls my entire life. I can't tell you how many holes we've dug, how many lakes we've searched. In the mid-1990s, Rusty was approached by a private investigator he had never hired, someone who had been quietly working the case on his own, and claimed to have developed significant information. He had even announced a $25,000 reward from his personal funds. But before anything came of it, he received threats warning him to stay away from the case. He eventually backed off. Rusty never found out what he had discovered. Terry Moseley is now 66 years old. He was 15 when he gave Renee Wilson a promise ring and watched her walk out the door. He never saw her again. He still gives interviews. He still answers questions from journalists and podcasters and true crime researchers. He still doesn't have an answer. I didn't ever think I'd be 66 years old sitting here still talking about how this case is crazy and unsolvable, he said. I never dreamed way back that it'd be like this, but it is. In 2023, billboards across North Texas went up showing the age-progressed photos of the three girls, what Rachel, Renee, and Julie might look like today if they were still alive. Clear Channel donated the space. The Texas Center for the Missing and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children partnered on the campaign. The Fort Worth Police Department tip line is still active. The case is still officially open. Rachel, Renee, and Julie are still listed as missing persons. Not deceased, not resolved. Missing. Somewhere, someone knows what happened in that parking lot on December 23, 1974. Someone knows who wrote that letter. Someone knows where those girls are. And they have carried that secret for 50 years through every Christmas, every anniversary, every billboard, every news segment. And they have never come forward. I keep coming back to that promise ring. Terry slipped it onto Renee's finger that same morning. She was 14, she was happy, she had a party to get ready for. She called her mother that afternoon to say she'd be home by 4. She never made it. Rachel was 17, 6 months married, already a stepmother, already building something. Julie was 9 years old. She just didn't want to spend the day alone. She kept whining until her mother said yes, and her mother never forgave herself for it. 2 days before Christmas, a mall full of people, broad daylight. 3 girls who had every reason to come home. Gone. If you have any information about what happened to Rachel Trlica, Renee Wilson, or Julie Ann Moseley, contact the Fort Worth Police Department at 817-335-4222 or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST. Every tip matters. The link is in the description. Rachel, Renee, Julie. Someone out there knows where they are.